Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with me, Charlie State. Our headlines today. New Year 2021, tributes are paid to the heroes of the coronavirus pandemic. Hospitals under extreme pressure as the new year begins. Rising COVID cases mean some seriously ill patients are being moved to hospitals on the other side of the country. A new era in the UK's relationship with the European Union as the Brexit transition period officially ends.
And it's a cold start to the new year, -6 at the moment in parts of southwest England. Is there anything warmer on the horizon? I'll have all your forecast details here on Breakfast.
Good morning, it's Friday the 1st of January. Happy New Year to you. Our top story this morning, as most people across the UK seem to have heeded calls to stay at home on New Year's Eve, some hospitals in London and the southeast of England say they're now under extreme pressure because of rising coronavirus cases. They say some seriously ill patients are being moved to intensive care units in other parts of the country. Our health correspondent, Catherine Da Costa, has this report.
Like several major hospitals in the capital, University College London's had to rapidly increase critical care capacity to cope with a surge in COVID patients. It's caring for more than 200, with numbers rising by the day. Staff can't always provide one-to-one care.
What we're having to now do is stretch those ratios. So one intensive care nurse is finding themselves looking after 2, 3, in some places at the peak they were looking after 4 or 5 patients at a time, and that puts a phenomenal amount of stress on the team.
Pressure too at Southend Hospital. A shortage of staff saw the trust declare a major incident on Wednesday. Some patients have had to be transferred to Cambridge, another sign of the unprecedented pressure hospitals are under.
Staff are already stretched. They themselves are suffering from the effects of COVID-19 through being ill themselves and being off work or having to self-isolate because of exposure. So there's a real risk of health services becoming overwhelmed because of lack of staff and inadequate number of beds and the pressure that everyone is under at the moment.
So what does declaring a major incident mean? Government money to reopen mothballed wards and community hospitals, people sent to other hospitals in the region or further afield, and the fire brigade could drive ambulances. That's something being considered in Buckinghamshire after the council and hospital trust also declared a major incident this week.
We're trying to actually look at the ways in which we can persuade people to use other alternatives other than coming into the hospital, the A&E department. And also we're looking at ways in which we can deploy resources across from other departments, such as the council, into the hospital. From the hospital's point of view as well, they're looking at cancelling some of their non-urgent operations to actually free up resource for COVID patients.
Some hospitals in the southeast are now so stretched, patients arriving at A&E are being treated in ambulances. Others are having to be sent across England for treatment. And some health leaders are warning we've yet to see the impact of mixing over Christmas.
What we're going to see in the coming weeks is these numbers really increasing because we know that there is a real lag between people being infected with COVID and the symptoms coming out. So typically it can be a 2-week journey from someone realising that they've been infected to perhaps being hospitalised. So the pressure is going to continue to mount, and it's going to be quite a nail-biting journey for the NHS.
It's a tough start to the new year. For many, the rollout of vaccines can't come soon enough. Catherine Da Costa, BBC News.
The UK has completed its formal separation from the European Union, leaving the single market and the customs union. The Brexit transition period expired at 11 o'clock last night when the new trade deal came into effect. Let's get more from our political correspondent, Nick Eardley. Morning to you, Nick, and Happy New Year to you. So what are the phrases being used this morning? The new era for the new year, what's that going to look and feel like?
Morning, Charlie. Happy New Year to you too. And 2021 is the year that we're going to start seeing the actual impact of Brexit. There are some pretty big changes that are coming into effect today on how we travel to Europe. You'll still be able to go to Europe visa-free, but only for 90 days. There's going to be changes to the way we work in Europe. Big changes for businesses who trade with Europe as well. A lot more paperwork for them to do, although it might be a few days before we see the impact of that, just because there isn't as much trade going on over the New Year period. For Boris Johnson, it's a big chance to take back control. This is him fulfilling the promises he thinks he made back in 2016 about sovereignty. He's talking this morning in the papers about giving some of that control back and the UK's destiny now being in its own hands. That said, don't assume we're going to stop talking about this forever now, because there are still big elements of our relationship with Europe that need to be worked out. Things like how financial services trade with Europe, data is shared, the specifics of the relationship between the UK, Gibraltar in Spain. And remember that the free trade agreement that is coming into force can change over time as well. The UK has the power to make different decisions, but that will have an impact. So a big change today, but still big changes to be sorted out too.
Thanks, Nick. So focus on trade, imports, travel, and let's go to Dover. Our reporter Simon Jones is there this morning. A lot of focus, of course, on how this will work in practice at the ports for tourists as well as for business and trade. Give us a picture of what it looks like, Simon.
Well, in the past few minutes, we've just seen the first couple of ferries leave Dover heading towards France. And these are the very first ferries to sail under these new arrangements from Dover. And the first time lorry drivers are experiencing them too. For them, it means a degree of extra paperwork and bureaucracy. So when they arrive at the port, they will have to have a barcode. They will have got that by getting permissions for imports and exports from the government. That barcode will be scanned, it then will be uploaded to French customs, and in theory, whilst the lorry drivers are on the ferry, the French customs will check all those details, and then once they arrive in France, they'll be able to drive off the ferry and continue their journeys if everything is in order. If not, they may well be pulled over for further checks. For lorries coming in the opposite direction from France to Dover, there will be just a light touch from the British government for the first 6 months. Add into this, though, anyone wanting to travel from the UK to France still has to have a negative coronavirus test. So when you look at that and the new bureaucracy, then that's potentially when there could be problems in the coming days as people get used to this new system. And also for passengers at the moment, essential travel is the only way you're allowed to visit the EU, but there will be changes in terms of passports, in terms of how long you'll be allowed to stay in the EU. So a lot of things to get used to for a lot of people.
Simon, thank you. Let's look at the situation in Dover, one of the key ports, of course. Let's have a look at Northern Ireland now, where they will continue to follow many of the EU's rules. It's slightly different there. Our Ireland correspondent Chris Page is in Belfast. Looks like a rather beautiful morning there, Chris, has to be said, in this new year. What are the changes going to mean?
Well, Charlie, as you say, it's a very still and crisp New Year's morning here at Belfast Port, and it's quite hard to imagine, really, that this is the front line for a significant shift in Northern Ireland's economic relationship with the rest of the UK, but that is how plenty of people see it. For the first time, there'll be lots of new checks on goods arriving here from England, Scotland and Wales. At least 40 lorries a day will be checked here at Belfast and at Northern Ireland's other main port at Larne in County Antrim. The reason for that, Northern Ireland is in effect staying in the European single market for goods, the special arrangement negotiated in order to avoid checkpoints on the land border with the Irish Republic, which was one of the most difficult issues throughout the years of the whole Brexit process. Now, what's happening today isn't just important practically for the likes of hauliers, it's also important politically. The new arrangements really have little, if any, political support here. Unionists see this as a new trade border in the Irish Sea, cutting off Northern Ireland from Britain. Nationalists and cross-community parties, well, they oppose Brexit altogether. What the government in London is emphasising, though, is that Northern Ireland is in a unique position. It has basically full access to both the British market and the European market, and there should be big business opportunities from that. Chris, thanks very much. Happy New Year to you. We're going to have a look at some of the celebrations that took place last night. Muted, of course, because of the events either cancelled, scaled down due to the pandemic. In London, a televised display was held over the River Thames.
Meanwhile, in Scotland, crowds of people gathered at Edinburgh Castle despite warnings to stay away. Greg Mackenzie has this report.
An hour after leaving the EU behind, the UK left 2020 behind. These were fireworks, but done in a COVID-secure way. A dazzling display on the Thames, televised on the BBC at midnight. Over the O2 Arena, images filled the skies, including a tribute to the NHS and to Captain Sir Tom Moore. There was even a special mention to something we've all had to get used to: Zoom calls. Before tonight, police had warned people to stay away. On London's Embankment, a few hundred people did gather.
It's been very quiet, and there's police everywhere, so it's just it's not like the usual.
No, the police have been lovely. It's been fine. It's been nice. We went to the Tate Britain earlier. The lights are still up. People are jolly.
Celebrations all over the UK have been either cancelled or toned down. At Edinburgh Castle, a single bagpiper welcomed in the new year, while the majority stayed away. Some people were turned away by the police. Instead of the usual fireworks for Hogmanay, this was the replacement, a series of videos showing drones forming images over Scotland's skies. Many of us may have seen in the new year from our homes as the pandemic continues to restrict life in the UK. But with 2020 now at an end, we'll be all hoping for a better 2021. Greg Mackenzie, BBC News.
Let's have a look at some of the celebrations elsewhere around the world. Different, of course. This was the firework display that went ahead in Sydney Harbour. People weren't allowed to gather to watch it, though, and in Auckland, people could attend because New Zealand's strict lockdown and border closures have been so effective. And the pictures from New York as well. Celebrations definitely cut back in Times Square. A small number of people, frontline workers and VIPs gathered. Usually, of course, it's packed with tens of thousands of people.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.